Hi, welcome to my channel. My name's Chance, and today I'm going to be going over my top 10 co-op board games. Now, if you've been watching me for any amount of time, you probably know that I am not the biggest fan of co-op board games. I have some issues with them. One, like fully open information co-op board games, I'm a bit impatient with. I get a little bored between turns. It's like there's not really a whole lot for me to be thinking about while other people are taking their action. I probably know what I'm going to be doing, so let's hurry it up and get back to me, right? So that's my own issue. But then there's also some design challenges with co-op board games where, you know, you have the alpha gamer issue. Now, there's the argument, is it a design problem? Is it a player issue? I lean on towards the fact that it is more of a player issue because there's games that some groups will not have that problem with and it'll be their favorite game of all time. There's other groups that there's going to be a player that has that problem and it's going to make the game the worst game of all time for certain players. And it just really depends. I ramble about this way too much. If you want to hear me ramble about it more, check out my video, the co-op board game paradox. I could talk forever about this, so let's move on. We got to get to the list, right? Okay, before I dive into that list though, first things first, I did not include any two-player co-op games, any exclusively two-player co-ops. All these games you can probably play at two players, they'll be fine, but I'm focusing on like that 3+ player count. Now, the other thing is that I didn't include anything that just has co-op modes. Talking about games that are they're made to be co-op. That is their kind of purpose. So we're not talking about anything that's like, oh, it's mostly a versus, but you can do a co-op version of it. Yeah, we're gonna leave those ones out for this video. Okay, that means we can get started, and before I get started with the top 10, you know, I know that's why you're all here, but I gotta do a couple honorable mentions. Now, the first honorable mention I have for this list is one that is in my top 5 board games of all time. I absolutely love this game. I wanted to put it higher in this top 10 co-op list, but the problem is I mostly played it solo. I played it a little bit co-op, but my friend just wasn't having as good a time with it as I was. Obviously, I mean, I had a great time with it. And now I do think I finally have a group where I'm gonna be able to bring this out again. So maybe this will be entering my top 10 co-ops if I manage to get that 3+ player count requirement met. But this is gonna be Oathsworn. Now, like I said, I absolutely love this one. I love the 2 parts of the game. I like the narrative part, the story part of the game. I'm not going to call it a choose your own adventure. It's more of a choose how you get to interact with the story. Like you're kind of on rails for the story, which that's going to upset people. They're like, oh, I want the freedom of exploration and stuff. Nah, it's fine, whatever. You get a more controlled experience with this one, but you get to choose the parts that you get to interact with. You get to see parts of the story, and if you go through it again, maybe you get to see different parts of the story and have characters interact differently and learn different things about the characters that you bring along. So I really, really enjoy that narrative, let's say the on-rails narrative experience. And then the fact that this is I think it's 21 chapter campaign, much more manageable than like diving into Gloomhaven or something, you know, a little less intimidating. But they back up that narrative part with just a phenomenal boss battler. I really do love the boss battler system. It is, you have this animus energy system that you're working to suspend your cards, but then you have a cooldown system. So it's a little hand management thing where maybe you're playing your big card and that goes into position 3. Now you got to figure out how to play another 3 card to basically every time you play a card into a section, you're going to be kicking that card around the board, but it's not going to waterfall like in some games, but it's just going to kick it one space. So maybe you play a 3 to kick that 3 into the 2, and then you play a 2 to kick that 3 and anything else in that 2 into the 1 position. Then you're trying to get it into your 0, because that 0, that means at the beginning of your turn, you get to pick those cards back up. But then also the bosses, they feel lively, they feel dynamic, because essentially you're working on breaking these dice on the boss to defeat it. But every time you break that dice, they're gonna have a reaction. So you gotta like time your combat around when you're gonna break those dice and who's gonna break those dice, who can take the damage from that boss, who can handle the reaction coming out of that boss. And you have some pre-warning because your people are knowledgeable of the deep wood and the animals in the deep wood. So they get to see how that boss is going to kind of attack. There are some things that'll kind of change that up, but yeah, I could talk more about this one. Ideally, I'll be doing a review of it. Hopefully, once I get that group in that 3+ player range, I'll kick out my review for it. But I really do love Oathsworn. Next up with my honorable mention, much smaller box, and I'm including this one because it's a party game that just didn't make this top 10 list. It was in my top 10 small box games video though, and this is going to be Ito. So Ito, I have a blast playing this. It is a game where all players are going to be dealt a card numbered 1 to 100, and then you're going to get some kind of prompt. It's going to be something along the lines of like describe something you find in a backpack. And then players, it's just going to be simultaneous. They are going to describe something they find in a backpack that meets the kind of rating from 1 to 100. So 1 being the worst and 100 being the best thing that you could find in a backpack. So maybe someone has the 3 card and they're like a rabid raccoon. Like, yeah, you don't want to find a rabid raccoon in the backpack. How to get in there? I don't know, but it's in there. Now it's an issue. So rabid raccoon, we're going to throw that one pretty far down to the left, face down. Now someone else is like, you know, they got the 80. They're like, ooh, let's say a gold bar. You know, could be better. You know, you could find something better. Maybe multiple gold bars would be better than that. But a gold bar, that's pretty good. So we're going to throw that one up closer to the 100 side. And then all players are going to do the same thing with their cards and describe something they think meets that rating criteria. And usually that first person that says something is going to kind of set the standard for that round. And then you're going to have some argument, players maybe switching around their cards, being like, oh, are you sure your thing is better than my thing? Maybe I'll add on to my description. Maybe then we'll redecide this. Then once all players are agreed, you're like, okay, I think this is it. You're gonna reveal the cards and see if you manage to get them in ascending order. And yeah, this is a game that I don't keep score on. We just do some one-off sessions of. It's great for the end of the night, like wrapping things up. Like, hey, we got 15 minutes. Let's do a couple rounds of Ito. So check out my top 10 small box games if you want to hear more about it. But yeah, I absolutely love Ito. I think it's a great party game to play, especially since it's co-op. Okay, now we got those honorable mentions out of the way. We can get to the reason why you're all here. This is going to be the top 10 list. And of course, we gotta go backwards. We can't start from 1, we gotta start from 10. How am I gonna keep you guys around? Although I do have the names of every game in the chapters, so you probably just can glance at that and then not watch the video anymore. Yeah, but I'm not gonna be one of those guys that hides it with the 1 through 10. I hate those videos. Well, whatever, let's get into this. So number 10. Number 10 is going to be kites. And I have a slash here. It's kites or skyrockets. So skyrockets is the follow-up to kites. I'm going to start by describing kites. Kites is a real-time co-op hand management game of a sort. Now, players are going to have a certain number of cards in hand. I think it's like 3 or 4. Those cards are going to have symbols on them. It's basically going to be 1 or 2 colors. And then there's going to be sand timers in the center of the table. Those sand timers are going to match those colors that are on the card. And starting the round off, a player is going to play a card, and then they're going to turn the matching sand timer colors up. They're going to basically start the sand timers. And your goal as a group is to keep those sand timers going. If any sand timer runs out, then essentially the round is over. You have lost the game. You have not kept your kites in the air. So you're just going to go in turn order, and people are just going to keep playing cards to flip those sand timers. Now those sand timers, they're going to have variable amounts of time. Like I think the fastest one is like a 15-second, the red timer, which is just annoying. You're flipping all the time. And then you have like the slow one up at 90 seconds, which is the purple timer. And then you also have a special round timer, which is a 60-second timer that if you play a single color card, you're allowed to flip that one to keep that one going. So you have these multiple sand timers you're trying to maintain. You have kind of this random selection of cards, and you're just trying to make sure, like a lot of them are going to be doubles. It's going to be like, oh, flip the yellow and the blue together. And you're like, oh, I don't really want to flip the blue, but I do need to flip the yellow, so I have to play this card to flip that one, and then I flip the blue too early. Then the next, but you're like, hey, someone flipped the blue because I didn't want to do that. And someone does a blue and a purple, and they're like, okay, I did blue and purple, and then it's like, oh crap, we got to pay attention to red. Who has a red card? Then someone's like, I do, and then everyone plays card fast to get to that red card. I will say this game starts off a little bit slow. It's kind of like, oh, this is going to be kind of easy, but then yeah, as you get, I would say, a quarter of the way to halfway through that deck, the chaos and the stress ramps up real fast. And I absolutely love it. I love this real-time mechanic in this game. I have a lot of fun with it. It's almost a filler, but it's one that I like playing back to back. Like I like playing multiple rounds of it. Then also also, Kites comes with some kind of mini modules in there. They're challenge cards. So one of them is going to be like Twisted Lines, where if you play that card, or well, you have to play that card, players are going to pass a card to their neighbor. There's going to be the Airplane, and when that card comes out, basically it's going to be in effect until it gets covered by that player again, so until it gets back around to them to play a card. And that just means no one can talk while an airplane is visible, because the airplane's too loud at the kite show. And then there's a Storm. When you draw a Storm card, you're gonna be like, a storm's a coming. And I think that one requires you to like flip all the sand timers, and like you have to play it on your next turn. So basically players get an opportunity to kind of prep for that. You're like, ooh, we know a storm's coming, so we gotta make sure we have the sand timers ready for that storm. So I think those challenge cards adds a nice twist and a nice amount of difficulty into this game. Then just to quickly mention Skyrockets here, I would recommend, if you haven't played either of these ones, Kites is the way to go. It's just one that you can easily pull out and get to the table and teach. Skyrockets iterates on this system. It's still sand timers. It doesn't have just the win-lose condition. You can now get like 1 to 3 stars, but it also adds scenarios. Like, it adds chapters that you can play. It's almost like a campaign, but I mean, you can just pull it out and play whatever scenario you want, so you don't have to go through it in the campaign session. But it does add some neat twists and some neat rules. Like I said, I'd recommend starting with Kites and see if you enjoy just that co-op real-time system. But I think Skyrockets is, if you play Kites enough and you're like, hey, this is great, yeah, Skyrockets is is an easy one to recommend after that. Okay, let's move on to my number 9. Now, number 9 for me is going to be Daybreak. Now, I have a bit of a soft spot for Daybreak. This is because I have a connection to the theme. I have an actual connection to this theme. In grad school, my research was on designing and fabricating solar cells. To be more specific, it was designing plasmonic enhanced thin film amorphous silicon solar cells. Let's throw my dissertation up there. Just see that nice little word salad right there. Yeah, so with doing solar cell research, you know, there's some crossover with understanding kind of environmental impacts of things, like how to get the solar cell or solar power integrated into the grid and the impacts of it, and how much land area do you need to fully utilize solar power, where can you have solar power? So there's a lot of things that kind of go into the justification for my research. So I had some crossover with kind of the environmental stuff and the policy things. And so that's why Daybreak has, yeah, like I said, I have a bit of a soft spot for this theme. I really love that they included this theme into a board game. And I love the fact that they included those QR codes, which provide you some background information on those different policies, on those different technologies as you play the game. But that doesn't mean Daybreak gets a free pass to be in my top 10. Daybreak is in my top 10 at number 9 because it has just an amazing card system. I really love this card system. It's also simultaneous, so you don't have to really wait for anyone. You can all play at the same time. And the way this works is that everyone has their country board, and you're going to start out with only dirty energy and a bunch of dirty infrastructure stuff. And your cards are going to represent different types of projects you can do. So you have, like, I think 5 projects up there. You can trigger the card for the project and take that action, but the cards in your hand you can use to power up those projects by tucking them behind the other cards. Now, tucking is a mechanic I'm not crazy about because it's a little fiddly, but it's fine here. I make do. But essentially you can tuck cards that add symbols, and those symbols can power up the projects that you have. And the other thing you can do with your cards is maybe replace a project. So instead of playing it for the symbols, you're gonna just be like, I'm gonna replace a project because this project is no longer serving me. Like, I need to, or it's like, well, I do want this project, but you know what? I really need this other project because like this is becoming a bigger issue to deal with. So I need to replace that project for now, even though I'd really like to use that project again. You got to make that decision and be like, I got to fund something else. You got to change direction here a little bit. So I like the card system in this is just absolutely, it's great. Now there's a couple things that bring out the co-op experience in this, and that's going to be these global events and also these crisis events. And these are going to be things that maybe as a group you decide to commit cards to try to either activate those global events to be able to power up some things later on in the round, or to try to mitigate those crisis events. And then you're also going to have some other cards in your tableau that might be like, oh, you can give a card to another player. So you might be asking around the table like, hey, does anyone need something? Like, I think I can get a card from my hand to you if you need it more than me. Like, I'm doing okay right now, so if anyone needs my assistance. And that's kind of a cool part of this. It's like, as a country, you're like, hey, I gotta get my stuff under control. But as you kind of get your things under control, you can kind of look up. You can look up from the table and be like, hey, we're doing pretty good right now. Does anyone need my help? And I think, yeah, Daybreak does a great job of that, kind of having that really cool card play puzzle and that co-op interactive collaborative experience. Now, there are some things I don't like about Daybreak. One of it is the fiddliness of the tokens. This is the first game I've ever played where I said, I wish this had tracks. Because you put out these tokens, but literally you could have done the exact same thing with 2 tracks on the board to manage your carbon capture and your carbon generation. So yeah, I feel like that was a miss. I don't know, maybe they did it to have a little more thematic integration in there, but oh well. Other thing is that, this is the bigger issue with the game, is it has an inconsistent experience. So Daybreak, I find, can either be ridiculously easy or ridiculously near impossibly hard. It depends. I think as I've gotten better at the game and I understand the card play system, I've gotten more used to like sacrificing my projects and like changing tactics as I draw cards, because it is a pretty tactical game. I've gotten better at the game and my win rate has gone up quite a bit, but sometimes it's just like, wow, this is there was no hope of me winning this, and other times it's like, this was not a challenge at all. I wish they would have spent a little more time kind of evening out that play experience, maybe figuring out kind of that good win rate percentage to hit. But yeah, it's that's really an annoyance with this one. Then the last thing I'll mention is that I've kind of switched to playing this on BGA, which is kind of sad. I mean, BGA manages those fiddly tokens I don't want to deal with, and also I don't have to worry about the game being too easy or too hard and kind of wasting my time with it, you know? So because BGA, I can knock out a game in somewhere from 5 to like 20 minutes if I'm playing it solo. So, and I'll probably have another video on BGA on how that can kind of ruin some games for people. Yeah, that's the only downside. But yeah, so that's Daybreak. That came in at my number 9 co-op game. All right, moving on to number 8. Number 8 is going to be my my preferred dungeon crawler. This is Massive Darkness 2, so the big box to my left here. Massive Darkness 2, so I played a few dungeon crawlers. I played like Cthulhu Death May Die, I played Marvel Zombicide, I think there was another one in there somewhere. But either way, I've enjoyed each one of these. But you know, like Cthulhu Death May Die, I mostly enjoyed for the theme and the conditions that your player would get. I found that super entertaining, and kind of going crazy over the course of the game was a really cool mechanic in Cthulhu Death May Die. Marvel Zombicide, it was fun as just like a horde battler thing, but I don't know, it didn't really land for me. I was like, this is neat, but with both Cthulhu Death May Die and Marvel Zombicide, I never really felt like I was getting super powerful during the game. I didn't feel like things were escalating and I was growing and, you know, experiencing that power fantasy during those dungeon crawlers. But Massive Darkness 2, I love this one because of the arc with the dice. So you start out rolling a few dice, and then as you get more gear and the game goes on, and you have more enemies, you just start chucking handfuls of dice. And that's what I want to do in a dungeon crawler. I want to figure out how to get as many dice as possible so I can throw them on the table and be like, look what I did. So that's what Massive Darkness 2 allows me to do, and I absolutely love it. Now, the other thing that I really like about Massive Darkness 2 is that each of the characters in it are completely unique. So in a lot of dungeon crawlers, you're gonna basically get a player board, and those player boards are gonna be the same exact layout, and it's gonna just be slightly different text. Sure, the characters play a little bit differently, but for the most part, you're moving and hitting things. I mean, still true in Massive Darkness over here, but each character has its own unique puzzle associated with it. So they said like, hey, shouldn't a thief feel different than a ranger and feel different than a brawler and feel different from a mage? And they're like, well, yeah, so they definitely should. So they gave each one of those characters a separate puzzle to deal with. So like the mage has its own little spell programming puzzle that it's doing, and then the thief has like a little bag builder game that it's playing, and then the ranger has this, or the archer or whatever, has a push your luck system where you're trying to get a certain number of arrows on your card. I played as the ranger, loved it. My friend hated that I was doing the push your luck system because he was always like, don't, just play it safe. And I was like, no, I don't want to play it safe. I want to push my luck and see if I can get the right number of cards. And then I'd bust and I'd be like, oh, my arrow broke. Whoops. So yeah, Master Darkness 2 is really the only dungeon crawler that has really landed for me and grabbed me. Generally these games I kind of get bored waiting around, but this is one that I just feel like it hits that sweet spot of just having that power fantasy come to life for you, rolling bunches of dice, getting a bunch of those minions out. And also this is a game I've chosen to paint. So I've been in the process of painting this game for a while, and this has been my first time painting minis, and I think that getting this game is a great intro to that because there's a ton of minis, and I feel like I can screw up and they still look better than they do as gray plastic. So, you know, yeah. So that is my number 8, Massive Darkness 2. Okay, let's go to a much smaller box now. Let's go to my number 7, and this is going to be Regicide. So Regicide I have played so many times. I mostly played it co-op, and I said I wasn't having any strictly co-op games here, so I have actually played this a few times at 3 players. I haven't played it at 4 yet. I would like to give that a shot, but Regicide is just such a phenomenal game. You don't even need to buy Regicide. You can actually just download the rules and use a deck of cards if you want, but I do think it's nice supporting the company here. I think it's like Badgers from Mars, and so buying their deck supports them. They also have their legacy version coming out, which I have a friend that ordered that. We're gonna be playing that together. I'm super excited about that. But Regicide is a game where you're gonna be trying to battle the royals in the deck. So you're gonna be battling the jacks, queens, and kings. And those jacks are gonna have like 20 health and they're gonna do 10 damage. And the queens are gonna have 30 health and do 15 damage. And kings 40 health and 20 damage. So it's going to be kind of a co-op hand management game. Each one of the suits is going to have a different power associated with it. Like spades are going to provide you with defense, clubs are going to do double damage, the hearts are going to heal, so that's going to take cards from your discard and put them back into your deck. So you basically, as if your deck runs out, you also lose. So you need to continually be refreshing that deck to stay alive. And then also, if you run out of cards, you're not going to survive. So you need to be drawing cards, which is what Diamonds does. That allows the group to draw cards together. So you're constantly paying attention, and this is a limited communication. So you're paying attention to how many cards people have in their hands. If you think they can survive that next person, then also it can be a risk trying to take out that royal. Like if you kill that jack, the person that killed him is going to be up for the next turn. So you got to be ready for that next card to come out. So overall, this is a pretty easy game to teach. There's some slight hiccups. Usually I feel like players need 1 or 2 plays before they start to understand it. But then I love this limited communication system. It falls into kind of like, you know, like the crew. I enjoy the crew, but I would rather play Regicide. I would much rather play Regicide over the crew. Just such a phenomenal design with a deck of cards. I'm blown away by it. Highly recommend Regicide. Okay, let's move on to something that is a little lighter, a little crazier, and more narrative focused. My number 6 here is going to be Freelancers. So Freelancers is, let's just call it a beer and pretzels co-op game. This is one where you kind of have to accept that you may not have a whole ton of control on the outcome. I mean, you do have choices. There are choices in the game, and the choices are entertaining. That's the important part. But for the most part, you're playing this to participate in the story in the game. So it is role-playing adjacent. Like you're gonna come up with a name for your character, you're gonna have traits for your character, you're gonna get some stupid crazy titles during the game and try to level up and stuff, and maybe unlock new dice and become a little more powerful. It's not gonna be like, you know, Massive Darkness 2, super dice rolling, whatever, but you're gonna get a little more powerful during the game, and you're gonna make these choices that'll impact your health, and there are gonna be there's consequences in it, so that's important. But for the most part, you're there just to have a good time with your friends, to participate in this cool narrative storytelling experience. So like I said, it's almost like a GM-less RPG in that case. But the stories are super entertaining. They are, I would say, not really kid-friendly, but they are just crazy and wild and have some. The first one we played had a crazy twist in it. Did not see that coming at all, but it's just one, hang out with friends and have a good time laughing and just, yeah. But like I said, not a whole lot of control, not a whole lot of strategic decision-making happening in this game. So if you're just like not interested in stories at all, don't bother revisiting this one. But if you're like, oh, that sounds great, yeah, Freelancers is awesome. And I can't wait to try out the next one. Wandering Galaxy, my friend just picked up, and we're gonna give that a play hopefully in the near future here. So that's number 6, Freelancers. All right, let's move on to number 5, and this is going to be one that I think is a little underrated. This is going to be Now Boarding. So this one I learned about from Efka over on No Pun Included. Highly recommend checking out his review of Now Boarding. He's going to go into way more detail than I do, and probably convince you to buy it immediately because he did that to me. So Now Boarding is a game where you are going to play as an airline, and you have this map of the USA out in front of you with various airports on it, and your goal is to basically ferry passengers from one airport to another airport. Your passenger card is going to tell you where they start, and they're going to give you a destination that they need to go to. If you manage to drop them off, you get to convert them into money. But some of the problems with it is that you're going to be with a specific airline, and there's going to be certain routes that you can't fly and other airlines can fly. And that's where you have your friends, your co-op teammates, right? So they're going to play as those other airlines, and they're going to have access to different airports than you. So basically you're going to be working together. Now, the goal of this game is to prevent passengers from getting angry, because if passengers are stuck at their terminal, they're going to gain anger cubes between the rounds. And if they ever gain a 4th anger cube, they get so angry that they go away and file a complaint. On your 3rd complaint, you lose the game. So you're basically trying to prevent these complaints. Now, the way you can clear these anger cubes is basically as soon as you pick up a passenger, those anger cubes are gone. You can't drop them at the same airport you picked them up at, so you have to move them somewhere. But essentially, that passenger is just happy to be in the air and moving somewhere. They could be moving away from their destination, but as long as they're in the air and you got them on a flight, great. so that's the goal of the game, is just to prevent those anger cubes. And you're going to be working with the other players. So the game is played in 2 phases. You get a planning phase and a flight phase. So flight phase is where basically all the movement happens, and where you're going to be picking up passengers, dropping off passengers. But during the planning phase, you're going to be saying things to your teammates like, you're going to be like, oh, I got this person over in Chicago. He needs to go to LAX, but I can't make it to LAX, so I'm going to take him over. I'm going to drop him off in Denver. Oh, and you over in LAX, you're going to be coming to Denver, and there's a guy that needs to go to JFK. So if you could bring the guy that's going to JFK, if you could drop him in Denver, we can trade passengers here, and I'll take that guy and I'll run back over to the East Coast and get back to JFK, and then I'll pick up these guys over here as well. And then during this phase, you're also going to have some face down passengers, so you're not going to know what destination they need to go to. So they're going to show up during the flight phase, and you're going to have to kind of adjust your plans accordingly when those people show up. So it's just this great cycle of going through planning with your teammates. And generally, I like to go around the table during that planning phase and be like, oh, are you ready? Check. Okay, good. Are you ready? Check. Good. Are you ready? Then to start the flight phase, all you're going to do, it's a real time, so you're going to flip the sand timer, you reveal all the passengers that are face down, and everyone goes. And it's a little chaotic, and I would say that sand timer is important to this game because it prevents that flight phase from taking forever and having someone like take over the game and being that alpha gamer. It's basically like everyone has to do their own thing. They got to know what's going on and take care of their own situation. But critically, the timer also allows for mistakes. And I think that's where the game is fun, is when a mistake happens. You get done with the flight phase and you look at the board and you're like, ah, crap, we forgot to pick up that guy. Shoot, but we need to do a loop back around to get him and move him on the next turn, or else we're gonna have a complaint filed here. So I think those mistakes make this game fun and entertaining. Then of course there's some other stuff during that planning phase. If you earn money, you can buy like more seats, you can buy more speed to move farther during the flight phase. So it has, and then there's also these weather things that'll change during the morning, afternoon, and evening. But yeah, it is a game that I love introducing new players. I love showing the people this game. I think it's super unique, and it's just a really, really well-designed co-op game. One of my favorites. That's number 5 for you. Okay, let's move on to this is getting into a newer one here. My number 4 is going to be Slay the Spire. So yeah, if you've been paying attention, this is a super popular video game on the PC, phones, tablets, wherever nowadays. This is a solo game on those devices, and I played a lot of this. So when I remember getting COVID, and I played this for like 2 days straight. And at first I didn't really enjoy it, but as I played it more and more, I started to enjoy the game more and more as I learned the systems and learned the deck building. So this is a dungeon crawling deck building game, and they took this video game deck builder, and they converted it into a board game, and a board game that you can play co-op, which that's probably the feature that interested me most in this. I wasn't certain if I was going to enjoy this. I was like, I played this a ton on the phone or on the PC or whatever. It's like, I don't know if I need it in board game form. Like, I don't know if I want to manage it. But they adjusted the numbers, they adjusted the math, made all the numbers easier to manage, and they made while the tokens are still a little bit fiddly, I would say they made everything, they just simplified it all. And they also brought out, they made that co-op experience meaningful. So once again, this is going to be a kind of a simultaneous play phase where players you can do it in really any order. You can do it in turn order if you want, but for the most part, you're going to be like, oh, I'm going to do this, this, and this. And then kind of like Daybreak, you still have those moments where you're going to come together as a group and be like, oh, I'm struggling with this guy here. They're going to do a lot of damage to me. Can anyone help out with the person in my row? Or, oh, I'm going to take a lot of damage. Does anyone have any defense cards that they can help me out with? Or you're going to look at your hand and be like, oh, I can weaken this guy. Should I weaken this guy before one of you guys do your attack so we can do double damage on this round? So it does a great job of giving people their own little puzzle to work with your deck building and your hand of cards that you have. But you have those moments where the table comes together to kind of collaborate and plan together on the most optimal strategy. And those planning phases, I feel like sometimes if planning takes too long in a co-op game, it starts to drag, but I never feel like that in Slay the Spire. I feel like it's pretty easy to parse the situation and to come to a conclusion as a group on those ones. So yeah, Slay the Spire, I think they did a phenomenal job adapting that deck builder on the on the PC into board game format. We'll probably hear more about this one later. I think this one's going to be moving up my list as I play it more, but I'm excited to get to play more Slay the Spire, the board game. All right, let's move on to number 3. This is an older one. This is on a lot of people's favorite co-op games of all time. I really enjoy this. I played this mostly at 2 players and a bit at 3 players. That's why I made it to this list. This is going to be Spirit Island. Now, Spirit Island is a bit heavier. This is a bit fiddlier, but overall, the AI system, I think this is the best AI system I have experienced in any board game. I absolutely love kind of the deterministic, bit abstract nature of the AI system. So you have kind of this flow of cards that are going to determine where those colonists go and explore, what areas of the board they go out and explore, and then it's going to go into this queue where you're going to have the furthest card to the left is going to be a Ravage, so that's where the explorers are going to damage the land and attack the pieces on the board, and then they're going to have the build phase where they're going to build up new buildings or cities and kind of grow their population, and then there's going to be the explore phase where they're going to go out to new zones and try to populate new areas of the board. And you're constantly managing this queue. You're kind of saying, oh, we need to stop this Ravage because if they ravage too much, that's one way we can lose the game. They're going to blight the land and the island's going to be destroyed by the colonizers. So you're like, oh, we need to stop the Ravage. But if you get stuck in that loop of stopping the Ravage, you're just constantly responding to the newest threat. But they're constantly building up. So you're like, oh, okay, well, maybe this turn we need to let them ravage so we can stop this build because they're growing too much. And then you're like, oh man, they're building too much. We need to stop them from exploring. We gotta look 2 turns in the future because like we can't just be putting out these fires all the time. So it does this great balance of just putting these fires out in front of you and you're like, oh, we need to take care of those fires. But every now and again, you gotta step back and be like, we gotta let that fire burn. We need to prevent this from being a future problem. So we got to take care of those bigger problems that are coming down the line. Now, the other part of this that I absolutely love is the fact that they put almost all of the asymmetry into the characters, into the players. So there's a ton of spirits available in Spirit Island. Each one is going to give you a completely unique game experience. And I think this is just, they did such a phenomenal job with these various spirits. You're going to have your own innate abilities and your own powers that are going to trigger off of different elements. And the other thing that's going to happen in this game is you're going to be drawing these minor and major power cards. But these ones you're going to see some of the same ones during the game or across the games that you play if you play enough of it. But maybe in one game, you're gonna have this one card and you're like, oh, this is a super powerful card. But in the next game, you draw it and you're like, man, I remember this card being incredibly useful for me. But you're playing a different spirit this time and you're like, oh, I need different elements. This card doesn't have the elements I need. I remember this card being really good, but it's not gonna trigger my spirit's innate power. So I think I need to choose something else. So by being these different spirits, it drives you down different paths. It doesn't force you into different paths, which is a version of asymmetry that I don't like. It's when it's like, you're playing the game this way, but it just drives you down. It says, hey, I'm gonna kind of guide you to have a different experience on this round. And yeah, it does such a phenomenal job with that variability that I love just going through those spirits and be like, oh, I'm gonna try this one this game. Now, there's a bunch of expansions out there that comes with a boatload of spirits, which I really love. So Branch and Claw I think that's the first expansion. It came with some new tokens, new mechanics. I would say it made the game a little bit easier, at least from my perspective. They're in the base game. The base game's crazy hard. And there's gonna be adversaries in there where you can make the game even harder. And I don't think I pulled out adversaries until playing with Branching Claw. That's when I felt like we had a little more control of the board, and that's when we were able to pull out those adversaries and increase the challenge difficulty of the game. But Branching Claw also added this event deck. I really don't like the event deck. I would say it's kind of hard to play without when you're using the expansion, so I still include it. But I found that the event deck adds a little bit too much chaos. Like I said, I kind of like the deterministic nature of the AI system, and that event deck just adds a little too much chaos and randomness to that system. So it kind of breaks the part that I really enjoyed about it. It's not the worst though, so I don't hate playing with it. I do like the amount of variability I get to use with the spirits when I use that event deck. So I do include it in basically all games I play these days, but I do feel like it kind of changed the game and gave me a more inconsistent experience, because sometimes that event deck can make the game a lot easier. Other times it can make it feel near impossible to win. Kind of like Daybreak, where it's just like, ooh, now you push things to the extremes when you pull that thing out. So that's my only real complaint about the expansions is that event deck. And then also this one, it has been falling on my list. Spirit Island keeps falling every year, and that's just because it is a lot. It's kind of a lot to bring out now. It's a pretty heavy game, and there's a lot of really good co-op games that are kind of taking the place of it. I like playing some of these ones that are easier to table, some of these bigger group ones, some of these hidden information games that are coming out. So Spirit Island does kind of continue falling, but I do still really enjoy it when I get to play Spirit Island. All right, let's move on to my number 2 game, and this is a title that is getting a lot of attention right now. This is Bomb Busters. So Bomb Busters, they just won the Spiel des Jahres and 100% deserve it. It is an amazing co-op game. So this is a co-op deduction puzzle where players are going to get a bunch of wires, and you're going to order those in ascending order. Basically, there's going to be blue wires numbered 1 through 12. You're going to add some yellow wires, which are going to be like 0.1s, maybe it's a 6.1 or an 8.1 or whatever, and then also a red wire. Now, your goal during the game is to basically deduce where the other wires are at, because you're trying to figure out where the connections of your wires go. So like another player, if you have a 7, you're trying to find another 7 out on the board so you can chop the 7 wires. Now, the only thing you need to be careful of is you don't want to cut the red wire. If you cut the red wire, the bomb explodes. Also, if you make too many incorrect guesses as a group, the bomb will explode. So you're basically trying to be a little safe. There's going to be some tools that'll help you with that deduction, like make some of your moves safe, because you're not going to have perfect information all the time during this deduction puzzle. Sometimes you need to take a risk, but maybe you'll use one of those pieces of equipment that the game gives you to kind of reduce your odds of making a bad choice. But this is one that, yeah, I'm having an absolute blast playing Bomb Busters. There's like 66 missions in the box. I think I've only played like 5. I think I played like 4 and 5 multiple times though, because we keep introducing the game to new people, so we haven't really been able to advance through the scenarios too much yet. But I still enjoy just playing those base scenarios. Like I always have a good time with it. I would have been amazed if they just had like scenario number 5 in the box. Like I think that was enough. But the fact that we get to keep changing this game up and keep advancing and kind of getting better at the game and changing the puzzle a little bit, I'm super excited to continue exploring those scenarios and advancing through them. So Bomb Busters, it deserved the award it got. I highly recommend it if you enjoy that deduction. If you enjoy deduction puzzles, also if you enjoy co-op games, this falls under like the Crew. You may notice the Crew is not on this list, and that's because things like Regicide and Bomb Busters, I would play that over the Crew any day. Okay, let's talk about another one that 100% replaces the Crew as well. None of these are trick takers, but still that hidden information stuff. Yeah, number 1 for me, and I feel bad about this one because it's kind of hard to get right now, but a reprint is coming. Portland Game Collective has taken on the responsibility of doing a reprint for this one. I think they were aiming for August, but hopefully, yeah, we'll see. Hopefully by the end of the year, this will be more available. This is going to be the little purple box next to me over here, Eternal Decks. Eternal Decks has absolutely blown me away. I was hesitant about picking this one up, but I decided I don't have many co-op games in my collection and I wanted to try it out. So I took a risk, purchased it, and absolutely love it. I think this game is brilliant. It is brilliantly designed. So this is a game where it's going to be another kind of co-op hand management. If anyone ever runs out of cards, you lose the game. So you start off with a pretty small deck of cards, and your goal is to get more decks of cards, you know, eternal decks. The way you get decks of cards is by filling out these rows. So a person that completes a row, at the end of the row, there's going to be, at the start of the game, 3 Eternals, and essentially they get to choose one of those Eternals. Each one of those Eternals has a deck of cards associated with it, and essentially you're going to take that deck of cards, you're going to put that underneath your current draw pile, and that's going to basically increase the number of rounds you can stay alive. So you got to kind of manage who's going to complete those rows and who can collect a deck on their turn. There's going to be sometimes a way that players can give a card to another player to kind of keep them in the round and be like, no, stay alive one more round. like just stay in it. Or I'll give you this card so you can complete that row so you can get yourself a deck. So you're constantly managing trying to get a deck. But the way you complete those rows is kind of that's the core puzzle of the game, because there's rules on how you place cards in those rows. Like you can't place the same number next to each other, and you can't place the same color next to each other, which is super interesting because players start with a single color in their hand. And then as you go through, like you're gonna pick up that Eternal, and generally the Eternals have usually 2 colors associated with them, and then also tell you, the Eternal card actually tells you what's in that deck. And each Eternal deck has a different back on it. So when people start drawing from those new decks they get, you can actually see which deck they're drawing from, and you can look at the Eternal on the board and be like, oh, so you have mostly red and yellow, so you might have a red or yellow card, and those are the numbers available to you. Okay, interesting. So you can kind of narrow down what the possible plays are going to be for that person. And then also when that Eternal, once they take that Eternal deck, that Eternal gets revived. That Eternal being revived is going to add a curse. That curse is going to be something like, no one can play 6s anymore. It's like, okay, so we can't play 6s anywhere anymore. Okay, we can manage this. And then you get another Eternal, and it's like, no one can play 3s anymore. And you're like, 3s and 6s are out. This is becoming a problem. We might have to take care of this. And then there's a way you can negate the curses by discarding some cards into this special river row, and you can cover up that curse and start being able to play 6s again. So you're constantly managing how you play to those rows. And then those rows, as you get through the scenarios more, you're gonna add new challenges and new restrictions on how you play your cards to the rows. It'll be like, oh, you can only play odd cards in this row, or you have to play a certain color sequence into this row. So it just increases the challenge of that mode. Eternal Decks comes with, I believe, 5 or 6 stages, which are gonna change up the rules of the game and kind of your end game conditions. So there's a lot of variation offered in this box. I would say the first stage was pretty easy. It seemed like we were struggling with it, but we got to the end and we're like, oh, we weren't even close to losing. Stage B, I just played recently, and yeah, it was down to the wire. We were getting to the end and we're like, I don't think we can win this. And then we flipped over a new row card and it was like, oh, I think we can do this. And it was like, literally, if we had 2 more turns, we would have lost. So it was down to the wire to win that stage B. I'm super excited to continue exploring this, exploring the variation available in Eternal Decks. I think this is one to keep your eye on. This is probably gonna be showing up on a lot of lists, especially as it becomes more available with that reprint. So yeah, number 1 top co-op game for me, Eternal Decks. It is flowing up the charts on my game rankings. Okay, that's gonna do it for my top 10 co-op games. I hope this was interesting for you. I hope you maybe found some co-op games that are new to you. I think my co-op list might be a little bit different than some other people's out there because I have some kind of stricter standards for my co-op games for my game group and just my preferences when it comes to co-op games. Because like I said, I don't consider myself like a strong co-op gamer, but I'm not one of those people that's just like, I don't play co-op games, because I think there are some really cool mechanisms and some really cool experiences you can have with co-op games. So as always, thank you for watching and thank you for spending your time with me. Let me know if you have any questions about these games, or if you have some recommendations based on what you learned about my preferences on a co-op game maybe I should check out. That's gonna do it for today. So I'll talk to you next time.